What options are available to India to restore status quo ante on the line of actual control, LAC, in the region? What options are available to India to restore status quo ante on the line of actual control, LAC, in the region? What options are available to India to restore status quo ante on the line of actual control, LAC, in the region? The standoff between the Indian and Chinese armies in eastern Ladakh is now in its 9th week. What options are available to India to restore status quo ante on the line of actual control, LAC, in the region? Option 1, evict the Chinese by force, destroy what they built. The most straightforward course of action would be for Indian soldiers to push out the Chinese from the new areas that they have occupied in the last 8 weeks, and destroy all the infrastructure China has built on the Indian side of the lake. Even the limited attempt to evict the Chinese from the observation post near PP-14 on June 15 led to the clash in which 20 Indian soldiers and an unspecified number of Chinese lost their lives. In the areas where the Chinese have come over to the Indian side of the lake, the Indian army may not be well disposed, due to constraints of terrain or infrastructure, to execute such a precisely targeted operation successfully. Also, some of the areas that the Chinese have entered are claimed by both countries, with no agreement over the alignment of the lake. There are areas on the lake that are not strongly defended by the Chinese, where Indian soldiers can move in and occupy a swathe of Chinese territory. At the negotiating table, the two sides can then exchange the occupied territories, and restore status quo ante. According to strategic affairs analyst Ashley Tallis, the 2013 Chinese incursion in Depsang was reversed within 3 weeks after the Indian army moved to the Chinese side in Chumar, and did some construction of their own. The QPQ option exists even now, as the entire lake from Ladakh to Arunachal Pradesh cannot be physically defended by the Chinese army. Also read, India should avoid strategic miscalculation, China on lake standoff. In this scenario, the Indian army holds the line by deploying in strength along the lake to ensure that the Chinese do not ingress deeper. This stops the Chinese at their current positions, while preparing Indian defenses and allowing for a build-up of troops for any eventuality that may arise. Talks are held simultaneously, including, if required, at the highest political level, to ensure the Chinese side returns to status quo ante. These are backed up by non-military moves against the Chinese, in the economic and trade domains, as has been witnessed recently. It allows New Delhi to demonstrate its resolve to the Chinese, while signaling to the world that it is a responsible power that would not be reckless. The downside is the prolongation of the standoff, possibly into winter, which would impose a heavy logistic and financial burden on the Indian army. It also carries the risk of an accidental escalation, in case of an incident between soldiers on two sides who are deployed eyeball to eyeball in an environment of high tension for a long time. And the biggest risk is that the Chinese may not actually concede anything on the ground even as Indians continue to hold the line. The continued Chinese deployment and new constructions could alter the status quo permanently. It may not keep the war limited to the areas India would want it to, and stretch the Indian military fully. This option also needs a heavy commitment of military resources, which will impact India's post-COVID economic revival. Probability, highly unlikely. For all the latest explained news, download Indian Express app.